Welcome. You're listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast, the show that cuts through the fog of war and updates you about the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
Hello, my name is David Obelt. I'm the Chief Content Officer for Malcontent News. Thank you for joining us today. Today, I am with Alex Roslin. He is the Foreign Support Coordinator for the Wild Hornets Charitable Fund. The Wild Hornets are a drone unit and drone development organization. If you follow the Russia-Ukraine war, you may be familiar with an interceptor drone called Sting. Wild Hornets, that's their creation. Alex, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Well, I really appreciate your time, but we're just going to go ahead and dive in, and I'm going to start with my questions. And where I want to start is actually not in Ukraine. I want to start in Romania. A couple of days ago, Romania had two drones, a Shahed 136 and then a Gerbera 2, violate their airspace. One of those drones flew up to 200 kilometers. And then Moldova had 6 drones violate their airspace. One drone crashed in Romania. One drone landed on the roof of a guardhouse at an orchard in a smaller town in Moldova. During that incident, the Romanian Air Force scrambled 4 fighter airplanes, turned on their air defense systems, and they weren't able to shoot down either drone. The Minister of Defense also made a statement saying, we're not going to be firing missiles or ammunition over Romanian airspace. Which I personally found a shocking statement because for me, it's tantamount to just telling Russia, you could just wing all the drones and missiles over our airspace you want, and we're not going to do anything about it. NATO nations have really struggled. We saw this in Poland also, and we just saw this in the Netherlands, are really struggling shooting down drones. How hard is this? Because in comparison, Ukraine is making this look easy.
Well, it's not that easy. I mean, Ukraine has developed this expertise over the course of a few years, in very tough conditions. These other countries don't have battle experience. So, this is sort of the whole story of Ukraine's drones and why Ukraine's become the leader in the world in drones. We have the battle experience, we have constant innovation, it's not our choice. We have to do this or Ukraine won't survive. Constant innovation with direct input from soldiers. That's how drones came to be in Ukraine. 3, 4 years ago, Ukraine didn't really have much of a drone industry. And now it's by far the world leader, not just in quality, but in quantity. One of the U.S. envoys, involved in the whole situation has actually said just a couple of months ago that Ukraine's drones are better in quality than those of the United States. It's not easy, but I mean, look what happened the last mass attack with almost 500 Shaheds and similar kinds of drones. Ukraine shot down 94% of them, including with our Sting drones. So far, the first 2 weeks of this month in November, about 17% of all the downings of Shahed type drones have been by our Sting drones. But this technology took a long time to develop, and it was developed almost completely thanks to donations too. So this is something that's very unique. Ukraine has not just this battle expertise, but this very agile, sort of horizontal style of innovation. It's very rapid. And so we see the results. Lives are being saved thanks to people's support all around the world, and thanks to brave, innovative Ukrainian defenders and drone makers. And plus also other kinds of defenders, mobile teams are still shooting down a lot of drones, and air defense units of different, using different kinds of systems. They're vital. The rate of the interception of the cruise missiles and ballistic missiles is lower than the interception of the Shaheds in that mass attack. And those require, technology that Ukraine, is a little bit scarce, and Ukraine needs much more of that. And it's really not great that the U.S. has effectively cut off all aid since January. of this year, only begrudgingly even selling aid, and even that's been threatened too. So that's costing lives. I mean, a lot of lives in Ukraine. Europeans have fortunately stepped up, Canada's stepped up, but much more is needed to stop these terrorist attacks by this horrible regime in Moscow.
Let's talk a little bit about Sting because probably not everybody watching or listening to this is familiar with the Sting interceptor. What can you tell me about that?
Well, this Sting drone is sort of shaped like a rocket. It looks a little different than a typical FPV drone you've seen out there, maybe. It was sort of built on our earlier drone innovations. Like we started with just an FPV kamikaze slash bomber drone. Again, this all financed by donations. We developed then larger drone, a Queen Hornet, which has 17-inch propellers, can lift about 10 kilograms to fly about 15 kilometers with return and 20 kilometers in one direction. We also started developing last year air defense drones that were mostly targeting the Russian recon and strike drones that are active around the front line area, within a few dozen kilometers of the front line, the contact line. So that would be like drones like a Lancet or Supercam, Zalas. These are drones that cause a lot of trouble around the front line, a lot of casualties, and also target civilians too, who live, within that sort of band. And so, based on this experience and this technology, we started getting, which was all developed in very close collaboration with Ukrainian soldiers, with their input and based on their requests, really, of what was needed. Started hearing that, some faster drones need to be developed to take down the Shaheds, which Russia uses to attack Ukraine every day, every night. Innovated by Russia, they have their own a few variants of those kinds of drones, the Haran, the Herbera, other kinds like that. Those drones mostly were targeted by Ukrainian mobile teams with machine guns, heavy machine guns, and Stinger and missiles, things like that. Mostly machine guns. But the range of those is limited, so the Shaheds have been flying a little bit higher, sometimes even faster. So it's harder to hit those and chase around basically in a pickup truck in a lot of cases, back roads of Ukraine to shoot those down. Troops started talking to us about the need for some kind of a drone interceptor that could hit those, and our drones were going, let's say could be, say, 150 kilometers an hour at the time. So these Shaheds can go 200, even 250 kilometers an hour. So we needed to really develop something much faster, take into account the impact of the speed on the drone frame, on the drone parts. This was a very, very challenging drone to develop, and it took us a number of months, effectively since last October to May of this year, when we was our most intensive research and development. We had our teams even going into the field to test those drones, to see what worked, what didn't, get feedback from soldiers, even started knocking down eventually our own Shaheds with our own civilian drone pilots. We had our first success in May of this year with a unit that knocked down a Shahed. And since then, we've knocked down over 1,500 Shaheds and other targets with our Sting drones. Likely prevented about 1,520 or so civilian casualties, killed and wounded by just with the downings by our Stings since last May. And then about 340 of those just in the first 2 weeks, more or less, of November.
Congratulations. Those are amazing statistics and a tremendous effort that the Wild Hornets have been doing and accomplishing. One of the things that we have heard, both from Ukrainian and the Russian side, and from some NATO leaders and people in the U.S. military who, quite frankly, are more forward-thinking and less rigid than some others, that one of the big challenges that the United States and other NATO and allied nations will face is this incredibly fast development cycle, this constant sword and shield equation that is going on between Ukraine and Russia. A drone is developed, the electronics are built, And instead of time being measured in months or even years before electronic warfare catches up with that innovation, it became weeks, and now it's become days. And we've heard some cases where sometimes it's just 24 or 48 hours, and all of a sudden something that worked great doesn't work anymore. What challenges are Wild Hornets facing in dealing with and navigating this sword versus shield equation?
Yeah, that's definitely a constant challenge. I mean, that's what we live every day, when we have a really brilliant drone engineer team that constantly is looking ahead. We're literally in the field every day testing new configurations, testing entirely new kinds of drones. When I've been there, often when people are sitting in an office and suddenly the drone engineers come in with some crazy new contraption that everyone's just drops everything, their jaws drop and they're like, what the heck is that? And everyone's excited to go take it to the field and see what it's going to do. What can it carry and how fast can it go? So literally every day, the theme of every single day with our team is, how are we going to make the drones better and make more of them? And the discussion flows from that. Like there's just a constant beehive of technical conversations and feedback, sending that to the right people and coming up with something different and new. And also innovation within our own production, which is just as important, making more of the drones more efficiently. We've got all the kinds of lean operational efficiency ideas in place. But also, kind of the Japanese car makers that are famous for this, we've developed that, but in a war condition where we've got to keep it all secure and deal with all the kinds of risks and constraints of a war type situation with donations. So imagine that car maker having to live under those kinds of constraints. Well, that's what we're doing. And we're innovating not just, as you say, a new kind of car every few years, but literally every day or two, there's some kind of new innovation that could materially change our drones and improve them, make them faster or more of them with the same resources. We're limited by our resources. Ukraine has only so much to be able to provide. The government of Ukraine is limited by its own resources, and allied aid is very welcome, but of course also severely limited, and we're grateful for all of that, but it's just not enough. Look at what's happening. I mean, Russia literally sends 800 or more drones in a day and constantly recruiting new soldiers to throw into their meat assaults, running out of all their equipment, but they don't care. They'll put them on a donkey or in a scooter. They don't care about their own lives of their own citizens. So Ukraine has to fight back intelligently and always stay ahead, and that's really our big challenge. Imagine that Moldova or Romania or Poland had been attacked not by 10, 20 drones, but 800. And not just drones that maybe in some of those cases, I know in the case of Poland, I understand that some of those drones actually did have munitions on them. They weren't just sort of decoys. But imagine that 800 of them were seriously actually targeting civilian facilities, civilian infrastructure, apartment buildings, daycares, pensioners lined up for their pension check. This is the kind of thing that Russia targets. Imagine trying to protect all those targets in your entire country from 800 drones, not to talk about the dozens of ballistic, hypersonic, and cruise missiles also launched, and not just all at one time. Russia's also evolved, so they launch them in waves and in ways to evade. They target the air defense. They see what's being done, and then they'll launch something to counteract that in the same night. They're not staying still. So there's where Ukraine is right now, still downing all that stuff. 94% of the drones in that case, and imagine a NATO country. Ukraine has been bashing its head in to try to get into NATO, but I'm amazed that NATO isn't begging for this expertise. The NATO soldiers and NATO officials, to some extent, are very interested and really do want to have this technology, this expertise, and knowledge. There's the Ukrainians are actually now training NATO soldiers, doing demonstrations for NATO to show what technology exists out there. If the Baltic countries ever, God forbid, should be attacked by Russia, certainly a very real possible scenario, you'd want to have some Ukrainian soldiers there, drone pilots and other soldiers with battle experience helping defend those countries, or I'm sorry to say, it's not going to go very well.
And that gets back to the crux of my initial question, right, about Romania in particular, and Poland. Netherlands earlier this week reported they tried to shoot down a drone over Volkel Air Force Base, which is a strategic location where U.S. Nuclear weapons are forward deployed. Their soldiers were unable to shoot down drones flying over a military base for 2 hours. If I take my journalist hat off and put my David hat on, this is just mind-numbing to me of like, wow, they're just there. And it's a military base. Like all excuses are gone here about, we don't want to hurt civilians, everything. You tried for 2 hours to shoot them down and you weren't successful. The West is just not prepared for 21st century warfare. I've seen videos in 2025 of NATO soldiers in the United Kingdom and in other countries doing their training. All militaries around the world release these videos, right? Of, see, we're doing training. Look how good and prepared we are for war. And what I'm observing are these late 20th century tactics that are still being used. And I'm looking at, say, a platoon of soldiers who are following behind a main battle tank, and they're just huddled up behind the tank. And I watch, and it's like, here, we're good at this. And I'm like, you wouldn't last 5 minutes in that formation in a 21st century battlefield. And I share your view that NATO should be just, please join us. You have the most experienced, battle-hardened military aligned with the West on the planet. It's not even close. Let's talk about fundraising, because that's what you do, and you've talked a lot about. All of this is essentially crowdsourced through donations.
If Ukraine wins against Russia decisively, this puts a stop. It puts a roadblock against this kind of progress of tyranny around the world, and potentially could save thousands, hundreds of thousands, or more lives, and keep people from being enslaved by dictatorships elsewhere in the world. So it's not just fundraising, but aid in general to Ukraine, aid to drone makers in Ukraine, not just Western countries sending their own often ineffective drones that aren't developed in battle conditions, but funding Ukrainian drone makers. This is the kind of aid Ukraine needs, and also air defense, all the other list of things that the Ukrainian government has asked for. This is helping those countries also defend themselves. A part of that is fundraising. Almost half of the 2.3 million drones that Ukraine produced last year came from individual and community donations. That's like towns in Ukraine using part of their municipal budget to support troops with drones. Ukraine has consistently been the only European country in the top 10 of all the nations of the world in charitable standards. It was at I think in 2023, the number 2 most generous country in the world. Ukrainians are helping themselves with developing their own technology and fundraising, and also relying on thousands of people around the world who have who are standing with Ukraine and opening up their hard-earned pocketbooks to help Ukraine. And that's continuing now. That's really important. Sting drones were almost completely developed thanks to donations. So those 1,500 Shahads and other kinds of drones that were down wouldn't have happened. Some of them would have maybe been down by other units, and maybe not. That's just the air defense drones. It doesn't even include ground attack drones that are right now causing 2/3 or more of Russian losses at the front. It's a really different kind of war in a lot of different ways. And it's important for Western societies to realize what it has taken for Ukraine to stop this genocidal invasion, and this unique combination that Ukraine has presented to the world for how to fight a war.
I'm of the strong view that any European leader whose national defense plan is 1-800 US help us is not paying attention to the political realities going on in the United States. And I would add that any European leader that is trying to convince themselves that, well, this is okay because come January 2029, this is just a phase. It'll be over. That is not a good long-term national security plan. If somebody's listening to this right now and they want to support the Wild Hornets, right? They've heard this and go, "Ooh, okay, yes, I want to be generous and supportive." How would they go about doing that?
Well, we have a website, wildhornets.com. It has all our donation options and other information about each of our kinds of drones. We give a lot of details there about that. Praise from the troops, mentions in the media, frequently asked questions. Our fundraising campaigns are mostly active on Telegram in Ukrainian, and then also we have a Twitter page that's more for the international community. It's in English. Twitter page is it's not exactly Wild Hornets, it's Wild End Hornets, but that's our Twitter page. So those are the main places. We're also on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff too. You can find us YouTube. We publish all our videos. When we have a fundraiser, we show the pictures of the drones going out the door. And then if they hit something with the drones, we show those too. And that's we have a lot more content on the Telegram page where there's a lot of thank yous, videos, and a little bit more videos of strikes than on Twitter. But that's what we endeavor to do. We try to be as transparent as possible given the wartime situation.
So if you're in your car and you're listening to this and you're going, "What was those URLs again?" Don't worry about it. They're in the podcast description. So if you go into the podcast description, the links to the website, the YouTube, and the Twitter, yeah, that's just in the or X is all down there in the podcast description. We got you covered. A couple of more questions, then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. If we think about late 20th century warfare, close air support played a huge role in this. You have dedicated aircraft, the Su-25 for Russia and Eastern Allied states, the A-10 from the United States. You also have attack helicopters. Has drones replaced this? Is this era over?
You may be able to get some close air support. You may be able to get a HIMARS strike. But, if you've got a drone unit right beside you that's in your unit, your battalion, drone battalion, attached to your brigade, well, that's going to be maybe your first option. So I don't think it's replaced it. I think it's an adaptation to the assets available. We had one case, one of our greatest Wild Hornets days actually was last year. We had the Bulava drone unit from the Separate Presidential Brigade. It's a very elite unit. It's one of the pioneers of FPV drones in Ukraine, helped actually develop the Wild Hornets themselves. Their idea of the Wild Hornets came from their anti-tank unit, part of which evolved into the Bulava drone unit. In any case, one of their great pilots, highly decorated pilot, saw a bunch of Russian armor in a couple of warehouses from the contact line, and he asked for permission to launch, to use drones. And he had a whole bunch of Wild Hornets that were fortunately available because of donations. Thank you again to supporters for that. He had 20 Wild Hornets, and he destroyed $12 million of Russian equipment with those 20 Wild Hornets in the space of a few hours. Look at the cost effectiveness of those drones. Those drones were worth $10,000, by the way. Just as a little comparison for you, 20 drones, $10,000 US, destroyed $12 million of Russian equipment in a few hours. One pilot.
I don't think you can buy a single M30 or M31 rocket for HIMARS for $10,000.
Yeah, it's been very clearly established by, there's a former Forbes journalist did a bunch of data on this and found that FPV drones are by far the most cost-effective munition on the battlefield.
people that follow the war and see the videos, they're seeing everything from the drone-eyed view or a drone watching the drone. But one thing that a lot of people don't see is the control units that the pilots are using themselves. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've developed our own again based on requests from soldiers. We've developed our own digital drone ground controller system that can work. It's the only one I understand that can work with both commonly used systems, the DJI and Walksnail. Very well integrated, allows it has a cable system that allows an antenna to be set up a good distance away from where the operators are, so it gives them more safety. Antennas can be manually, remotely rotated, point to where the drone is flying. What they really allow, I mean, it may not sound as sexy as a drone itself hitting a tank, but this allows a drone to hit a tank. Just using FPV goggles gives you a very limited range, and that's not really enough in today's battlefield. So these ground control systems are critical, and high quality ones, especially for digital drones, which are have a lot of advantages, are not easy to find. And so we've developed our own system like that, and we're really innovating. That's in massive demand right now. Soldiers are really making a lot of requests for them once they find out we have that. And we've innovated even a new variant of that's going to be even better quality. They allow drones to effectively be used at long distances, 20 or more kilometers away, in many cases, a lot more than 20 kilometers away. And so our new system is going to have better performance. We'll probably announce details about that very soon.
Alex, I really appreciate you joining us today and talking about Wild Hornets, the geopolitics and the military situation within Europe, Russian capabilities and non-capabilities, and the sword shield equation, and everything that Wild Hornets is doing, as well as the donors who support them to defend freedom and democracy in Ukraine. If you're watching this video, or podcast on YouTube, and you're like, "What is he doing with his hand there?" We got a puppy a few months ago, and she has a very minor health issue going on today. Like, seriously, I don't want like people emailing, "Oh no, I heard your puppy." No, it's not bad, but she has a little minor health issue, so she's in the office with me, and she's losing patience. So I'm petting a pug down here.
Oh.
That's what's going on with my hand if you're watching this video. Um, uh, so Alex, you do raffles. You've reached out to us frequently over the last maybe 3 to 6 months, and we've amplified and reposted, and we've shared on other channels outside of Twitter. Let's talk about the current raffle that's going on.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing that. This really means a lot to us, and it's very important for us to have this kind of support from people like yourself and your community. And I'm sorry about your little pug. I hope he's feeling better or she's feeling better soon. Um, so yeah, we're doing a raffle right now. I mean, literally, we're with the exception of a few days pause between raffles, we've been doing raffles almost nonstop for almost 3 years, 2.5 years, let's say. Uh, no, actually 2 years. 2 years we started we did our first really big raffle. And we have a really hardworking group of volunteers. Thank God for them. Supporters out there. This one here is funding Sting drones. And it's kind of unique because we started our first Shahed hunting contest for Ukraine's drone units. We had one pilot who actually knocked down 24 Shaheds in one night with
Wow.
our drones, our
Wow.
Sting drones. He's from
Wow.
the 1020 Anti-Aircraft Missile Regiment, very elite group of air defenders there. And so we thought of this challenge. Let's see who can knock down the most Shahads, and that pilot in their unit will receive. We're going to give away 35 in total Sting drones to these different pilots. and also some ground stations that I mentioned and other equipment that they need to keep up their work. So this raffle will fund those drones. Hopefully, will fund a good part of that. And we have some incredible prizes, including a custom and hand engraved handmade knife, engraved knife by very well-known person on Twitter, Grit. And we have a raffle partner, fellow Raktar, who's spreading this to his great community. We have some signed flags from Asgard, the drone battalion, part of the Nemesis Unmanned Systems Brigade, very famous. These guys are absolute legends and drone gods, among the first FPV drone users, and used our drones a lot over the last 2.5 years. We have another sign. These are signed flags. These are like historical artifacts. We have another flag signed by Kozaksy Romaha, a very famous Ukrainian singer. We have an FPV pilot kit that's worth $820. And we have a stamp set from HUR, Ukraine's military intelligence. Like Kraken is also part of that stamp set. So we've got some really cool prizes. There's actually a matching going on frequently as part of the raffle. So please find us on Twitter or Blue Sky and join, and you can help save lives.
If you're driving your car, you just wait a minute. Where's the link? That it'll be down to go to the podcast description. You will find the link for the current raffle that is ongoing. And if you're listening to this and it's like the end of December or it's 2026 and you're going, I missed the raffle, I can assure you there is another raffle going on or getting ready to start, because they are relentless in the raffles that they're conducting. And Alex is one of the people at the tip of the spear in that activity. Just click on the Wild Hornets website link or go to their Twitter or X. And I can assure you, you will find a raffle there. The other thing I want to say is, if you're one of our subscribers to our 5 times a week Russia-Ukraine war situation reports, I can guarantee you have seen a lot of videos from the Nemesis unit, which are using, as Alex said, the Wild Hornet drone. So you have seen a lot of their equipment in action. Alex, thank you so much for your time. It is deeply appreciated. This has been a great conversation. I hope the people listening to it enjoyed it as much as I have. And with that, I want to thank you once again for coming on, and would love to have you maybe come back on in another 6 or 7 months. I have a feeling, unfortunately, that we're just going to be in this continuous cycle of, hey, we've got a peace deal. Ukraine says, fine, we accept this peace deal. And Russia goes, yeah, we're not doing this.
Well, thank you so much for your support, and to your listeners. And, if that's the case, and it could very well be, Ukraine's going to need a lot more help. And so please don't hesitate. Share our posts, share our fundraisers. Every dollar is crucial, and you're helping to make history. Ukraine's been waiting 800 years almost for freedom. So thank you so much for everyone who stands with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
Herom Slava. A majority of our audience is from Europe, and I want to talk to our listeners in Europe directly. If you've been a longtime follower, you know that we have been saying since March of 2022, the West can support Ukraine and Russia can be defeated. In March of 2022, it was literally, now it's metaphorically, in Kyiv. Or the West can kind of ignore the problem and drag their feet. And in another 5 years, that fight will be in Berlin or Warsaw. We're getting to that 5-year point. And there is a lot of people who are smarter than me who are screaming at this point, at the top of their lungs, that it's coming. If the West doesn't stop sleepwalking, and that's my word, it is coming. My appeal to you, particularly if you're one of our European listeners, one of the things that you can do, if you're listening to this and you're frustrated and going, David, I agree with you. I totally agree. We're sleepwalking into a continental war. my government is dragging their feet or doesn't get it, my leaders don't get it, I don't know what to do. I can tell you what you can do. You can open up your wallet, you can pull out a piece of plastic out of that wallet, and you can send some money to the Wild Hornets. That's what you can do, because that is an active step to help stop Russia metaphorically at Kyiv. And so that it doesn't have to be Warsaw or Tallinn or Vilnius or Berlin, because I am of the strong belief that if Ukraine is allowed to fall, then it is just a matter of time. If Ukraine is forced to sign a bad peace, it is only a matter of time. The wolf will be at your door. I'm not saying this to scare you, to try to appeal to a sense of deeper fear to get you to support the Wild Hornets. I'm saying this as somebody who believes this to the bottom of my soul. My wife and I plan to retire in Europe. We don't know where we're going to retire now. We don't. So this is in some degree personal to me. My family lives in the Czech Republic. So this is something that is personal to me at a deep level. So I'll just close with one more time. If you're frustrated with your governments, if you're frustrated with inaction, then take action yourself. And if you're listening to this and you're going, look, times are hard. I don't have a lot. 2 euros, 3 euros, 5 euros, it adds up. It adds up fast. I say that as somebody because we're subscription funded and we have a tier that's only $2. But you know what? You get 1,000 people doing $2 subscriptions, it adds up. It's the same thing with the drones. $500 gets you a drone, 500 US. So let's see, that's like 450-ish euros. So 5 euros added up. It's not a lot of people to put warheads on foreheads. Alex, again, thank you so much. Deeply appreciate your time. Keep up the great work. Keep up the fight. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast. To help keep us independent, please consider providing financial support by becoming a patron. Want on-demand news in your hand? Download the Google News app and make Malcontent News one of your favorites to receive breaking news updates. Thank you for listening.